In the vein of Borky calling today's show a Festivus edition, Borky has more laundry that he would like to air.
Well, it's not that. It's more along the lines of we just spent the last 2 weeks listening to multi-million-dollar football coaches complain about their jobs. What frustrates me about people is they often complain and offer no solutions. Oh, this isn't sustainable.
See, an airing of a grievance.
Yeah. Oh, this isn't sustainable. We can't go on like this. Is this really what we want college football to be? As I cash my check for $500,000 that I'll get another one in 2 weeks. But yet they don't offer any solution. Oh, that's above my pay grade, they say. Let's be the solution people. Let's let Kirby Smart whine and complain as he adds another 5-star to his roster about the current state of college football, and Nick Saban complain about parity as he's probably going to win another national championship. Let's be the
they
ones.
Got a 5-star today also.
Oh yeah, of course. You know that's not sustainable though. And we can't continue on like this. It's so hard for me and my $10 million a year. If college football had a true commissioner, which is what it needs, if it had one, and his name was Richard Cross or Brian Haydad, and you had Roger Goodell power. So not, dictatorship power, but you made decisions and people went along with what you said and you created rules and you handed down punishment all on your own. How would you fix this unsustainable state of college football?
Commissioner Haydad, the floor is yours.
Oh, God.
You want me to start?
I'll say this, that we got to get some stability in these conferences. So I don't know quite how to do that, but we need to say that within 5 years, we're going to lock you in. We're going to lock into conferences. We're not going to allow for expansion after 2027. Whatever conference you're in at that time, you're in that conference until we decide to reopen the books at that point, because we've got to have some stability. People have got to know who they're playing. Fans want that stability. My decisions are going to be, and Mark Emmert was really bad at this, about making decisions that make sense for fans. Things like that. Just, you want to know who you're playing. You want to know where you're going in the future. So that would probably be my first one. We're going to, plus also just for me selfishly, then we couldn't talk about it anymore. I got you.
You got me. Number one, I would put windows on the transfer portal. Number two, I would allow for one free transfer, and any additional transfer would cost a year in residence with no exceptions. If you have used your one free transfer, you are welcome to transfer again. You may receive scholarship money. You may not play for any reason. I think that would limit the amount of transferring that is available. I would take the top roughly third of the 128 or 130 teams that we've got in Division I, and they would play for one national championship, and the other 2/3 would play for a different national championship. Because I'm living in a world of reality where team numbers 45 through 128 are just built differently than team numbers 1 through 45 or 50 or whatever that number is. And it's not a slight, and it's not a slap, it's not anything, it's just true. You could still play a couple of those crossover games in the regular season if you wanted to when you're building your schedule. But in terms of playing for a title, everybody would now have, well, I say everybody. It's possible that teams number 25 through 45 in that scenario wouldn't actually have a great chance to win a national championship. And teams at the bottom of the other division probably wouldn't have a great chance to win a national championship. But you would have a whole bunch more teams that had the ability to legitimately compete for a national championship. College football that we hear coaches complaining about, where we keep hearing it's not sustainable, it can't last like this, there are too many problems. So my solutions were you were allowed to transfer once, but any additional transfer means you have to sit out for a year. Splitting Division I football into two divisions where there is an upper and a lower. I toyed with the idea of a salary cap for coaches, but I think that's very uncapitalistic, and so I'm tweaking that idea in my head. But here's where I am with coaches. There's no cap on coaches' salaries, and I don't think there should be, right? That's market-based. But a coach cannot leave his current school for another job unless he has finished his contract, he is terminated, or his current school receives compensation, and I hadn't worked that part out, from the school to which he is leaving for. Or he is just released from his contract. You know, maybe you're at a spot where you've got a coach that's been with you for 7 years. It's gotten a little bit stale. He's got 3 years left on his contract. He kind of wants to go somewhere else. You're ready for a fresh start. The opportunity presents itself, and you choose to release him because you believe it's in the best interest of all parties. That would be an acceptable way for a coach to leave. If you fire a coach, he can go anywhere. But if you're happy with your coach and he's making good money, he has signed a contract that is 4 years in length, and 2 years into that 4-year deal, he decides he wants to go somewhere else, can't do it. He can leave your school and have to sit out for 2 years before he takes another job. You can negotiate something with the school that's trying to take him away from you, where you receive compensation that allows you to release him.
You know what you're describing right now?
The NFL.
NFL coach contracts.
Head coaching contracts in the NFL. To me, that doesn't work for assistants in college football.
Pick?
Say what?
What's the equivalent of a draft pick, though?
I would have to just be
you
money.
give them a
cash
consideration,
considerations.
A scholarship. Yeah, you could say, well, we're going to give him 2 scholarships, but that doesn't mean that a great player is going to take that scholarship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and assistants in the NFL don't have that. I mean, well, sort of they do, because you have to ask assistants, but they can leave without penalty for an upgrade. Right. They can't just take a lateral move without some finagling. But
yeah.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Chris in Oxford says that's not going to work. What are you going to tell the Walmart employee making $12 an hour when he takes a job working at Target making $18 an hour? It's the same principle. No, I understand that it's not right, but Borky gave me the power to be the commissioner of college football.
Well,
and so I'm putting some rules in place. And by the way, that's not an apples to apples comparison.
You don't sign a contract to work at Walmart. You just, you sign some paperwork, but you're not contractually obligated to work there for 4 years.
You are an at-will employee.
Right.
You have the ability to walk
then?
away, and they have the ability to fire you at any time.
Do you set something up where you can't have 5, 6, 10-year contracts? 2-year deals.
No. I have no issue with that. If a school wants to lock into Mel Tucker for 10 years, they want to lock into Jimbo Fisher for 10 years, and Jimbo Fisher's willing to lock in for 10 years, I got no issue with that. Whatever your state law allows, do it. But the terms of the contract, the length of the contract, you got to serve that time, or be fired or be released. Or if you choose to leave early, your current school has to agree, like they have to negotiate with the school that's trying to take your coach, and there has to be consideration for that. And then that consideration has to be approved by me. Like I have to sign off. If I'm the commissioner, I have to sign off that, okay, that was a fair deal for both sides, and I'm willing to sign off on it.
And there is precedent for that, the NFL. I mean, if Sean Payton comes back into coaching next year, let's say Mike McCarthy stinks in Dallas, and Jerry Jones finally gets his man, the Cowboys owe the Saints as many draft picks as the Saints ask for until the Cowboys say no, because he's still under contract with the Saints. So they would essentially trade his contract for, my guess would be between 3 and 5 first-round picks, second-round picks, in order to make that happen.
Yeah. So I understand that I've also kind of avoided the elephant in the room. And I'm just going to be honest. I don't know exactly what the answer is. And that's NIL. How do you level the NIL playing field where student athletes have the ability to be compensated for their name, image, and likeness, but you do it in a way where it's consistent across the board? And some people would call that a salary cap. That's not what I'm getting at exactly. And so I'm playing. Well, yeah. But again, I don't love dictating the market.
Well, what you say is you have X amount to spend.
Well,
it's not.
That's what I'm getting. Go ahead. No, that's where I'm hung up. I mean, like the number that I'm playing around with in my head is you have on a given incoming signing class, you got $3 million, up to $3 million that you can use for NIL, and you cannot exceed $12 million for an entire roster. And you've got to manage those funds. And here's the part I'm hung up on. I would almost like the schools to be able to distribute the NIL, but I think you're opening yourself up to problems on who gets what when you do that. Because I don't think every player deserves the same thing.
Right.
Here's how you do that. And this is something I know, but I've got all the power. I would reduce roster sizes. The NFL plays with 53, 46 on game day. Do you really need 85 in college football?
I don't need college football to be the NFL.
No, but here's what I'm saying. You reduce the roster sizes, and that spreads the talent around more.
Yeah, but you're also taking opportunities away.
You are, and that stinks, but such is life. Those guys can play at the FCS level. Where there's great football there, and there's scholarships available there. And you unilaterally increase the FCS scholarship level. You make that even.
Oh,
they can. You bring them up, so they're at 62 and a half or 62, 63. If you reduce the FBS level by 10, you bring up the FCS level by 10.
And think about it like this: the guys who we're talking about having to go to play FCS, these are guys that are currently playing at like Bowling Green. I mean, just the bottom tier of Group of 5. That's who we're talking about here. Is there that huge a difference between playing your football at Bowling Green and playing it at Youngstown State?
Very little.
Is there that huge a difference?
And so those 10 players that Alabama would have, that Georgia would have, that LSU would have.
They go to State and Ole Miss.
They go to State and Ole Miss.
And then the 10 players that State and Ole Miss would have signed, but now they got better players, they go to Southern Miss and South Alabama. And then the 10 players at Southern Miss and South Alabama, it's a pyramid effect. It's not even a scheme, really.
I would it's multi-level marketing.
Yes.
I would figure out a way within the confines of the NIL to say that if you, outside of the rules set up for NIL, you break the rules and we find out you break the rules, the penalties would be harsher than anything the NCAA has handed down in the last 20 years.
It's got to be, if you're paying players outside of NIL, it's a death penalty. It's got to be straight up, you can't play football for 2 years. And you just put the fear of God in them, because the booster who gets caught doing that is never going to be invited back to a family function ever again.
Yeah, what I had written down was increase enforcement staff and shoot teams to the moon, is what I had written down.
Just straight up, if you get caught paying players now outside of your NIL structure, you will be shut down for 2 seasons.
Ooh.
I promise you, only the Dome will cheat. So, because you'll get caught. Because everybody will turn them in. Everybody will be like, hey, these guys over here.
And people know, right? I mean, people don't have the ability not to talk.
Right.
And Pat says a draft is the only way. There's no way you can put a cap on NIL unless you want to be sued all over the place.
You can't. You can't tell a kid, an 18-year-old kid, where he has to go to college. You can't do that.
I agree with that. There's no way to do the draft.